Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jayson Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. I'm your host, Sherrod Blakely, with a special guest today, Mr. Jacob Tobey from 9 News in Denver. Jacob, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Back. I was decent enough to get the call back. So the first episode was decent, and we're gonna build on it and make it better this time.
Exactly. That's what we try to do. We try to build these things up. Well, we start from a level and then we raise the level as we go on. Cannot say the same for the Celtics, unfortunately, though. They suffered the second loss of the season to the Denver Nuggets, 115-109. You were there at the game. What were some of your impressions of the game as you kind of look at it in retrospect?
Yeah, well, the first thing is that, if people, Boston or New England people haven't been to Denver, they would feel very at home. There are a ton of Celtic fans in Denver. And Denver is one of those cities where it's like a transplant city. So there's not a ton of people that live in like downtown that are actually from Colorado. It's a lot of people from LA, a lot of people from Boston, a lot of people from Chicago. So when those teams come into town, it basically feels split down the middle. It's almost as loud of a cheer when Jokic scored last night as when Jaylen Brown was going off, or Jason. Like it was pretty wild. And so I think the Celtics kind of felt, it wasn't really a home, atmosphere for the Nuggets. They kind of felt, all right, we got some people in here. Let's, and especially like with how their season's going, they just have probably acquired more fans throughout the year. So, but it was a fun game for sure. I mean, it got down to the wire towards the end a little bit. I think the game in Boston was maybe a tad bit more entertaining in the late game, but for sure last night was fun. And there are a couple, big themes that you take away, like not being able to beat the reigning NBA champs, Jayson Tatum kind of struggling, Jaylen Brown going off. Like there's a bunch of different stuff in there. But the Nuggets kind of got the job done, and they weathered the storm, and they just did what NBA champs do, and they can just play a ton of different ways. And they held on, and the Celtics, for whatever reason, kind of lost it and just couldn't regain it. Because in the second half, I think it was a 6-0 run by Porzingis to start. Malone bangs a timeout. You're like, uh-oh, here we go. But then it never really built from there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, the second half. I think the start of the second half was where Boston really could have made their impact, and they kind of didn't.
Yeah, well, the thing about the Nuggets this year is that, and I've been doing this for a while, and this might be one of the more disrespected defending NBA champs I've seen. I mean, when you talk about the Western Conference, and you often hear about, the great things that OKC is doing, and Minnesota is and Anthony Edwards are doing awesome things, and here come the Clippers, and it's like, oh yeah, the Denver Nuggets, they're playing pretty good too. It's like they have sort of, I think, kind of almost embraced that underdog theme, even though in theory they really shouldn't feel that way. But it seems like those on the outside kind of perpetuate that a little bit. And is it fair to say that they're kind of feeding off of that a little bit?
Yeah, they felt off it last year, and it's just the way Denver has been perceived for a long time. Like, you got your boy Stephen A. Smith out there saying he did not want to come here for the finals once again. Like, he's trapped in Denver. And that carries a little bit of weight when Stephen A. says something and people are like, "Oh, Denver, like weird." But hey, sorry, dogs are barking.
Don't talk about his Stephen A. That's what he said. He's barking because you're talking about Stephen A.
Yeah, exactly. But no, that's just the way that this city's been built. It's always been overlooked. It's except when the Broncos were at their peak, it's just been an overlooked sports town. And they're on their mountaintop right now. But you're right, Jamal. I think Jamal for sure is the one that maybe takes it a bit more personal than the rest of them. That his team is not being talked about, but at the same time he buys into the Jokic system where it don't even listen. It doesn't even matter. Let's just keep doing our thing. Let's just keep being in this routine of getting the job done. And it doesn't seem to bother him too much. I would say Murray and probably Coach Malone are the two that maybe get the most irritated about not being discussed. And it's more so Murray with like, or Malone with like maybe Murray not getting the recognition of, you know, being an all-star or being one of the best players, you know, in the world. And he surely is. Just wasn't healthy for a month this year, and that's probably why he wasn't in the all-star game. So they feed off it 1,000%. And I think they got jacked up last night playing against a team that everybody is pretty much in agreement that they're going to win this year. But they can't beat Denver right now. They can't beat them.
Right. And it's interesting that you bring that point up, because for those who are listening, they may not know this, but you are a Massachusetts native, went to Suffolk University. Massachusetts is home. And so just kind of knowing you and knowing how you have followed the Celtics, how much did this loss, how does this impact how you view the Celtics? I mean, to the point that you just made a minute ago, they have been the almost ordained Eastern Conference champion in the eyes of many. Does this second loss to Denver diminish your thoughts on their chances of getting to the finals, or let alone winning it, but just getting to the finals?
I wouldn't say getting there, winning it though, and it's not like, for me, like last night was like in Boston, like one-offs can happen. Like you can lose a close game to an NBA champion and it'd be fine. But like when they didn't come out and beat them the second time, I was like, I don't know, because this team has a problem with some of their mental capacity with Miami and stuff that happened last year and the year before. And you wonder if that plays a part in it. And it wasn't like Tatum played well and the supporting cast just didn't have it. It was the opposite. The supporting cast was pretty good. You know, at least his running mate was pretty good. And Brown and Tatum just haven't had a chance to hit a big shot in the corner, wide open three late.
And it would have put him up by 1 point at that point. Yeah, that was
you can't ask for a better look than that, man. He was
right. Well, and Jacob, to your point, just the whole setup of that play came about because Jaylen Brown got up in Murray, forced a turnover. They were able to get in transition. They swung the ball around because there were two other guys who had shots that they could have, in theory, taken, but they passed up decent shots for the best shot you could literally get in that moment, and Tatum whiffed.
No, he did. And so that's what's concerning about it. I would say, like, if I didn't know the history of like the Miami series and all that, I would say it really wouldn't hurt the Celtics, but it's gonna mentally. I think that's gonna play a big part of it. I don't know if they were necessarily like tired from the elevation. I don't know if I saw that last night. We were at shoot around and I meant to ask Derek White, you grew up here in this elevation. Like, is it actually like real? Does it actually feel that way now that you've stepped away from it and you're coming back? I would assume he would say, even though he grew up in it, probably still yes. Like, it does obviously have some sort of effect, but I wouldn't say that was the leading factor last night while the Celtics were, losing. Like, it didn't seem too tired to me. So it's a mental thing. And now, these two teams won't meet till June. If everything goes to the way they want it to. So we won't know again. But I think it showed me a little bit of like, I don't know,
Yeah, I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. And even with the loss, even with them now having lost two in a row, which for them losing two in a row is like for most teams losing like 6, 7, 8 in a row, because it just doesn't happen, particularly not this season. And yet they still have a pretty sizable lead in the Eastern Conference, still have control of their own destiny as far as home court advantage throughout the playoffs. But there were some disturbing things, and we'll talk about Tatum a little bit later, but I wanted to talk a little bit about just the bench play. And that was one of those things that Boston has been really kind of stressing that they're getting better at and better at. And then you see a guy, Peyton Watson. Who the hell is Peyton Watson? I tell you, he's the guy that had more points in the entire Celtics bench. That's who he is. Speak to me a little bit about just the second unit impact if these two were to meet in the finals, because obviously we know what Jokic can do, we know what Jamal can do, we know that, but it's guys like Peyton Watson who ultimately may determine which way this series goes. And just speak to just that second unit, some of the guys that people maybe not know that much about on that Nuggets roster that can potentially make an impact in the series.
Yeah, so like I was actually talking about it last night with somebody from the league. After the game, we were kind of out somewhere, and we were kind of talking about the benches because like the starters are very talented on both sides. It's the bench that's gonna win or lose this finals if this is what it's gonna be. Watson is probably the only sure thing off the Nuggets bench right now. That's the funny part. They hit on him, man. He was not playing much at UCLA.
Right.
He averaged 3 points a game, but his potential was unreal. And the Nuggets saw something in it, and they've done a great job of drafting. Jokic obviously was kind of a lucky throwaway pick, but like Murray,
Because Watson was like the last pick of the first round a couple years ago. Yeah.
They obviously drafted Joker, but that was kind of a luck thing. But Murray, Porter, Christian Brown, these Peyton Watson, and no one really knew. All right, this kid is talented for sure. He's got the body type. He's got the attitude, confident as heck. And I love that as a young guy. He is a confident cat. But what was going to be his game? Because he wasn't like a knockdown shooter coming out of college. Good defender, but wasn't raved about. But he's a good defender. He is being raved about as a defender now. He is blocking shots, mucking things up down low. In transition, he's fast as heck. He gets to the rim. He does a bunch of different stuff. He'll hit an occasional three. I think he was only 1 for 4 last night, but he'll hit. I think the one he hit last night was pretty big in the second half, and he just plays with confidence, and he's earned Michael Malone's trust, which is hard to do. He was asked yesterday pregame, like 20 games left-ish. How do you see your rotation? And it was pretty much like Watson's in and still trying to figure it out. Is it Reggie Jackson as our backup point guard? Is it Justin Holiday? Reggie struggled recently, and Holiday played well against the Lakers last Saturday, and so there isn't really a lot of knowns off the Nuggets bench as well. Like Christian Brown's a good defender. He's been up and down this year offensively. So Peyton Watson is like the guy, and the Nuggets really don't have a ton of big guys off the bench. Like Zeke Naji will play a little bit, but he's not. I don't think he has like the full trust level of the Nuggets coaching staff. So you're right. The Celtics bench, Nuggets bench aren't that great. So who really is going to step up in these big games? And it was Watson. I mean, when you make an impact on defense, you'll win Coach Malone's trust over way easier than you are just putting in buckets.
Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's a tournament season or the fight for a playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Prize Picks is really simple to play, and I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Use the code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
One of the matchups that going into that game that a lot of us were looking forward to seeing, and certainly it had its bright spots where it looked really, really good. And other times it looked like it was just a very lopsided affair in favor of Denver. And I'm speaking about Jokic and Porzingis, and just that's a matchup that the Celtics pretty much all season long have been able to benefit them. as you know, Porzingis with a 7-footer who can score inside, outside, a pretty good passer, reminds you probably in some respects of another guy who's a 2-time league MVP who plays in Denver. But in that particular matchup, he was able to dominate Porzingis when it absolutely mattered most down the stretch. Speak to how he just has this incredible pulse for what the game needs at the right time. I mean, speak a little bit about that part of Nicola's game.
Yeah, it's crazy watching him every night. I said that last time I was on here because it's true. What was Porzingis? Porzingis was 9 of 23 from the field.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often from him.
No.
Nicola is a big, like, girthy guy. Like, he's not taller than Porzingis,
Right.
but he's just big. He's hard to move out of the way, and he doesn't get the credit of a first or second team all defensive player. And he's not that. I'm not saying he's that, but he's better than people think he is on defense. I mean, he controls it back there. He's calling out signals, and so defensively, I think he still does make an impact of getting up in people's faces and banging down low. But the way Joker operates on offense, and I looked over or someone looked over at me last night in the media section and was like, Joker gets the ball at the free throw line or below in the paint, and they're still coming to like double him, and he whizzing it to the corner, open three, whizzing it to Aaron Gordon, dunker spot down low. Aaron Gordon changed the game last night for sure too.
Yeah, he had some big plays,
big dunks, and teams just don't. Teams have a hard decision. Like, if we're going to double him, he's still going to make the nicest pass ever. If we don't double him, he's going to shoot this freaking thing over everyone's head. So It's really hard to defend him. But yeah, did you hear Shaq last night? Latvian lasagna. That's what he said about Porzingis.
Shaq, you're better. Shaq's better than that. He's got better ones than that. I'm gonna say, Shaq, try that one again. Latvian lasagna.
That went viral. And I don't necessarily agree with like the way he phrased it, but like, yeah, I mean, Porzingis compared to Jokic is thin, is not as strong as him. So on either side of the floor, the matchup is in favor of the Nuggets. But on any other team, it's Porzingis. I mean, he's been killing dudes. And we went to shoot around yesterday morning. And I'd never seen him in person before because whatever game I've covered, it just hasn't been whatever team he's on, Knicks, Mavs, Wizards, whatever. And he is massive. He is a really big guy, but he just didn't really enforce it last night.
Right. And that's, to me, I think that's the beauty about Jokic's game, is that he literally gives the game what it needs. Because you could see down the stretch as he's backing, Porzingis up, the Celtics looked almost paralyzed. Do we double? Do we stay with our men? And they stayed man to man. And Jokic did Jokic, he doesn't waffle on what he's supposed to do in the moment. Like, whatever you're doing defensively, he knows what you're doing. He knows what you want to do, and he's going to make the right basketball play to inflict the greatest amount of punishment on you as possible. And he's doing it with having a dad bod, which for those of us weekend warriors, we love that about him, because he runs up and down the court the way we look like we want to run up and down the court. He's a little more athletic than us, though. I give him that.
He just makes it look weird but the dude's bringing the ball up the court. He's starting the offense. Like, he does it all. And it's such a luxury for that type of guy to be your guy that you revolve everything around, because Murray can play off the ball half the game because Jokic is the point center. And I don't know how you defend it. I really don't. I don't know if the Celtics can. 2 times this season, they haven't.
Well, here's the thing that one of the things that I've noticed, and this is just really consistent just through the ends of time when it comes to playoff basketball, is that often teams that make the deepest runs is not necessarily because they're the best team, but they're the team that got the best matchups so that they can be their best version. You have a better handle, better pulse on the teams out west. When you look at Oklahoma City, you look at Minnesota, you look at the Clippers, which of those teams do you think would give Denver the toughest challenge getting out of the Western Conference?
I was literally having this conversation with Scal, having dinner before the game last night. Because he was asking me, he goes, man, like, who are y'all going to have problems with? And, it's tough because, like, Karl Anthony Towns is out. And
that's going to change things a little bit, to say the least.
They'll probably slide a little bit. Scal wasn't too high on them anyway. I was a little different. Anthony Edwards is a bad dude. Did you see that game-winning block last night?
Anthony Edwards is one of like maybe 2 or 3 guys in the NBA that I would absolutely pay to see, simply to see him and him only.
He hit his head on the backboard with a game-saving block last night at the buzzer. So, but you're right. Cat out changes it. I would say the Clippers, if they're healthy, if they're complete. Right. Like, I know Russ is out. But if their 2 main guys are healthy, I would say the Clippers. It might be that year they get to the Western Conference Finals, and may give Denver some problems, but still, and the Lakers are surely not even close to that. Nuggets have beaten them 8 times in a row. They are not scared of LeBron. It's
been that many times. Damn,
8 in a row. So the sweep last year, 3 games this year, and then a game
the year before
last game of the regular season.
Gosh.
So 8 straight against the Lakers. Now people always they'll be dangerous in the playoffs if they get in, which I agree with. I just don't think it's against the Nuggets. I think they'll lose. So it's probably the Clippers if they're healthy. Kawhi is playing great, and Paul George too, but. I still have the Nuggets coming out of the West. I do.
And you should, because here's the thing about all of those teams. Even if those teams are healthy, historically, those teams don't get it done in the playoffs. I mean, the Clippers have been a perennial laughingstock. They're a good team now. They got good players. They got good coaching. But historically, they've been a joke. Minnesota, joke. Oklahoma City, very talented, but young. And you're not really sure. Gordon Hayward hasn't had the kind of impact I thought he would. Maybe he'll pick it up come playoff time. But I thought it was a great pickup for them because they really, I thought, needed someone who's kind of been through some semblance of playoff battles and wars. But they feel like they're a year away from being able to seriously contend for a championship, even though their record suggests otherwise. And when the dust settles and you look at who's the last team standing, the only team that makes sense is the defending champs. 1, because they've done it before. 2, because they have a roster of guys who feed off of being the underdog. And 3, and this is, we talked about this earlier. Losing Bruce Brown, you needed someone to fill that kind of fill in the gap type of role, and he seems to be delivering that. And to your point, I watched some of the game, and that confidence that you talk about, yeah, it's real. I mean, he plays with a different kind of swag that you normally don't see from a second-year player who is not necessarily fully ingrained in what the team is about per se, but he still feels he belongs, even though he hasn't really done a whole lot to show that he belongs.
Yeah. I was trying to find, because I heard this quote last night. Jokic was asked about Peyton Watson's, maturation, and he said, "It's like poison. He poisons you with his energy." Ain't a ton of guys that can, first of all, get Nikola to say something like that. That's
right.
For Nikola, that's 2 sentences, but that's
right.
That says a lot. Coming
2
from
sentences
him.
is like that. That's like getting Kawhi Leonard to open up to
yeah. And I would say Christian Brown probably did the same thing last year, poisoned this team with his defensive energy and earned the trust right up, into the playoffs, and was playing like, a rotation guy and for a championship team as a rookie. And Watson's in his second year, and he's injecting this energy into it. And like I said last time, and for people that didn't listen when I was on the first time, like, confident dude. I was on the championship fire truck with that dude, and he was having a grand old time. But I think at that point he was happy that obviously won the championship, but he knew he was going to be a big part of this team this year. Mm-hmm. He knew that his role was going to change, and he had a great summer. He was excited about it. He came in. He's a strong dude. He's ripped, and the confidence is key.
Mm. And the one thing that we definitely agree on is that Jokic is clutch when you need to be clutch. That he's proven that time and time again. But I look over at this Celtics team, and Jayson Tatum, even though he is easily, I think that in the eyes of everyone, pretty much, he's their best player overall. But is he their best clutch player? That has been the question that has been raised not only after the Denver game, but really throughout this season. He's been in those moments and he's been in those positions where he hasn't necessarily delivered when they absolutely needed him delivering a clutch. And then you look at a guy like Derek White, you look at a guy like Porzingis, you look at Jaylen Brown, who I think had 42 points, I think a season high. They have shown the ability to come up with some big plays. Where do you see Jayson Tatum in the whole clutch argument at this point?
I grew up. Paul Pierce is my favorite all-time player.
I knew it. The truth will always set you free.
He set me free a bunch of times. And I grew up watching him hit daggers, and you talk about it post-game. All right, that's how I grew up. All right. I just don't feel the same confidence level. But it's weird because Tatum is more talented than Paul Pierce by 3,000 miles. It's not even close. Mm-hmm. And for last night, wide open three in the corner.
You can't ask for more than that.
You can't ask for a better look from your guy. And for some reason, when it left his hands, I was like, I don't think it's going, and it didn't go in. And
right, I had that same thought.
And that shouldn't happen with him.
Right.
He's hit a couple big shots in the playoffs. And actually, Kendrick Perkins was talking about this pregame too, I think, or during the day yesterday. His clutch efficiency, I think, has gone down every year in the regular season. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it's gone down. And I just don't get it. And I think, what do you have, 12 shots last night?
Something like that.
He had 12 shots, 13 shots.
It's like 5 for 13 or something like that.
Yeah, 5 for 13, didn't inject himself into this game when it needed to be. All right, you're going to miss the end of the game shot, but can you get your team, on a run to get to that point? He didn't have it, and I think that's now. Jokic is going to win the MVP. I don't know if Tatum won. I don't know if Tatum lost his MVP last night, but it kind of maybe put a bow on it just because if he had a big game, they won, they waxed the Nuggets. That would have probably.
Yeah, it's a different conversation.
It's definitely a different conversation. He gains momentum, and again, best player on the best team in the world. He gained momentum, but 12 shots, I didn't feel his energy. I felt Jaylen Brown in that game. Right. I felt him going to the rim. He was getting anything he wanted at the rim, no doubt about it. Missed some free throws, but so did the whole Celtics team.
Yeah.
But I just never felt Tatum, and that's the one thing is that you just don't feel him sometimes. Mm-hmm. And you always feel Jokic because if he's not scoring, he's passing.
Right.
You always feel to a certain extent Jaylen because he does have that attack mode to go to the rim. Now Jaylen loves taking some tough shots too, but He goes to the rim. You got to give him credit on that. Like he will go to the rim when he needs to, and that's still the problem with Tatum is that he just doesn't drive.
Yeah. But it raises the question though, and we'll end it on this. I mean, if and we're not saying that Tatum is not your clutch guy, but if you had to go in a different route for the Celtics as far as having that guy you turn to down the stretch in a close game, are you turning to Jalen? Are you looking at Derek White? Will you go to, Porzingis? If you had to pick another player on this team to be that clutch guy, that one guy that when the game is tight and you need this bucket to force overtime or win the game, who are you looking to besides Tatum? If you had to pick one guy not named Jayson Tatum.
Give me D White. Give me D White. Give me him. He is, and I'm going to stand up, he's from Colorado. He's from Parker, Colorado. My girlfriend's from the same high school as him, so I got a little bit extra pride there. He's a legend there, a legend Titan, legend high school. So, it's not just that shot against the Heat last year. I just think the way he controls the game, the way he thinks, is amazing. And his journey, I know his college coach, Tad Boyle, and they produced some good guards. Derek White, Andre Roberson, Spencer Dinwiddie. Colorado produces good NBA point guards, and White's the best of them for sure. Other than Chauncey Billups, but that was before Tad's time. But his ability to play at any pace. Like I love him in transition, but I love him in half court. I love him handling the ball. I love him off the ball. I love him coming off a pick and roll. I love him coming off a curl, and then driving, to the lane. So he just does a bunch of different things. And yeah, I would, because I know he's not going to take a tough shot. I worry when Jalen takes a contested 17-footer with two guys on him. I worry when Jayson Tatum steps back, left wing, 35-footer with a hand in his face. Now, he makes it a bunch of times, but he also misses them a ton too. And Derek White won't do that. He'll drive. He'll get fouled. He'll crash the glass at the buzzer and put it in. Now, to me, they're still going to go with Tatum, and they should because he's Tatum. But for this argument, I would pick Derek White. But
yeah. Well, I don't know if you've been listening into our the Big Three NBA podcast, but I have been on the D White train for a while, and the thing that I love about him, maybe more than anything else, is that no matter what the moment is like, his demeanor doesn't change. When he scores 8, 9, 10 in a row, he doesn't look any different if he's missed 4 or 5 shots in a row. And that level of consistency, I love to see, because I know that more times than not, it's going to pay off in those late game situations, because the process that he goes through to be successful previously isn't going to change in that moment. I am 99.9% sure that if Derek White is in that same corner that Tatum was in and has that same shot, he's going to make it. I have very, very little doubt that he will make a wide open corner three in a late game situation. And like you, Jacob, when I saw that ball leave Tatum's hand, I wasn't feeling as though it was going to go down. I was feeling immediately like this should go down. Not that it's going to go down, but that it should go down. In the back of my mind thinking it's probably not. And that's what happened. So every player has areas of growth that they have. And I think for Tatum, I think it's pretty clear at this point that he needs to become better in those end of game moments. It seems like that's the one thing he has not been able to really find some degree of success with at this point in his career.
And it's weird because Kobe was that guy.
Yeah, his hero. That's what his hero did. Kobe could go 9 for 23, but then you look at the actual box score, he made 3 of his last 4 shots.
Yeah, it's weird that he idolized him, and that's the one thing you're right. That's the one thing that collectively the whole league is like, dude, if you get this, you are no doubt the guy.
You become your idol. You become the
Yeah.
idol that, you become a legend. You become that guy.
And
So,
and Jamal Murray, I think, I think the league knows, the players know that he's one of the best players in the world. I have no doubt in a late game when Jamal puts up a three that it's probably cash, especially if it's open like that. And, for me to say that about him but not Tatum is telling.
but it's true. It's true. I mean, Jamal he's got the receipts to back that up. He's got lots of receipts. Yeah.
He got a ton of receipts for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And Tatum's kind of got what I call the broke man pat down with that. It's like, oh, it's in here somewhere. I got that receipt somewhere. No, you really don't. You really don't have that receipt.
But that's you can't teach the fire. You can't teach that inside instinct because, like I said, whether he hits the last one or not is whatever. But if he hits 3 of 4 like Kobe would do, to get your team in position, like, are you aggressive towards the end? Like that fire inside you, not a ton of people, you can't teach that. So it's the question we've all been wondering for a couple of years now. It's, we won't know till it only matters in the playoffs, really. Like if he hits a couple game winners this playoff run and the Celtics win the championship, it's all fixed. So
right, exactly, and that's really what it's ultimately going to come down. And hopefully, we'll see these Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics playing for all the.
Get me home.
Exactly, get Jacob home.
Give me a hotel in the Seaport. Give me a hotel in the Seaport. Come on.
Absolutely,
too many platforms for work. We should.
So. Listen, Jacob, this has been awesome.
Awesome. Projects, marketing, it's costing us.
Really quick, shout out to our sponsors, Indeed.com, HelloFresh, and Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network. Folks, download this latest episode of the Big 3 NBA podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps. Sherrod Blakely hosts, Jacob Tobey, amazingly awesome guest. Jacob, we'll do this again soon, my friend.
Playoffs. Bring me on, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. Thanks, Jacob. I'll talk to you soon.